Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. Tonight we have Ghosts of Nutty Putty. So, Ghosts of Nutty Putty was written by Shadow Swimmer 77. It's on creepypasta.wiki, and I'm just going to read this author's note that accompanies the story for a little bit of background information about this story. So this is their entry for Tawahe's Wheel of Misfortune 2022 story contest. Their challenges were thematic, write a story based on a real life piece of music, in which case they chose I Will Fail You by Demon Hunter, and technical, write a story where the ending is the beginning. So that's kind of where the story where it starts on the wiki and stuff of that, and like that's the little bit of background information about this story in particular by the author. But before we get too far ahead, let's do our initial recommendations for the story. I'm going to recommend this story, but perhaps with a little caveat after, like accompanying that.
I'm also going to recommend this story.
I'll recommend it too.
Okay, let's find out why we all recommended this one. Starting with the rundown featuring The Rock. Except The Rock is no longer is not this character, because this character has a name, or at least the main character of the story has a name. Jasper, a veteran cave rescue responder and now park patroller, finds a group of kids on spring break in a cave where they shouldn't be, where one of them, Ben, has gotten stuck in a tight vertical branch of the cave. This isn't a great situation at all, above all because Jasper has been living for years with the guilt of a death from a similar situation. A person named John had a similar situation where he died during the rescue. Dealing with the ghosts of his past, both figuratively and literally, with John's voice tormenting him in his head, and flashbacks to those events, while conditions only get worse and further isolate the group from outside help. Jasper manages to set up a rope and pulley system to have the group of friends above pull Ben out of the hole. But just like with John, Ben says someone is holding him down. And despite Jasper's reassurances, as in the past, that it's just the blood pooling around his brain and causing hallucinations, even Jasper spots someone beyond Ben deeper in the cave. And it turns out to be John. Then history repeats itself, it seems, as the same disastrous event happens again, and one of the pittons breaks loose, and Ben is sent back into the hole where he was pulled. Jasper calls out, as he did at the start of the story, and waits in fear for a response that never comes. Finn. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to Everyone Tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions. At this point, I've got a few, not a lot, but I'll start with this one here. I'll be back as soon as I can, Ben. Just have to go call for some more help. Try as best you can not to move around. You're like to just wedge yourself in even tighter. I know, guys. I know. It's dialogue. But it really should say you're likely to just wedge yourself in even tighter. Not you're like to just wedge yourself even tighter. Sorry, it irked me.
It irked all of us, since all of us just said, Did you also have it as one of your grammar-related things, Mike?
Yes.
Well, there you go. You do not need to justify yourself further.
Well, I do, because it is dialogue, and we usually give dialogue a pass in the writing.
That's true.
None of us gave it a pass this
No.
time.
No, we were all just like, we were all fussy bitches this time.
Yeah.
But I'll move on to the next one. Half a dozen late teen and early 20-somethings waited for him there. 4 girls and 2 boys. Okay, so when I first read this, I didn't like how it had like half a dozen late space teen, or half a dozen late teen and early 20-somethings. I feel like, much like how 20-somethings has a dash between that links 20 and somethings together, I feel like half a dozen late teen, or maybe even like late teens, should have a dash between them.
Late teens that are 20-somethings,
yeah, half a dozen late teens and early 20-somethings waited for him there. Yeah. And then the next one here, which is my last one. He finally did after a few seconds that drug on for a subjective eternity. But the extrication was somehow even slower than before. It's supposed to be drug. While people use it, it's wrong.
Yeah, it's legal. You can go to jail for doing too much drugs.
God damn it. Well, that's the exact reason. This is what I think also is because it's supposed to be dragged when you're doing a past tense of drag, not drug. Which I googled to make sure I was. I mean, mind you, take it with a grain of salt. I googled to make sure that I was in the right on this, but yeah. So, but that is my grammar inquisition. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
All right. Well, the very first sentence needs commas.
Does it?
Oh
yeah, you're right.
So the first sentence here is, all Jasper could see of the boy by the narrow beam of his helmet light was a pair of low-cut boots and maybe 2 inches of ankle. So I put the commas here. All Jasper could see of the boy by the narrow beam of his helmet light was a pair of low-cut boots and maybe 2 inches of ankle.
I'm guessing by the pauses you did there, that's where the commas were. Yeah.
Yes.
I did my correction differently. I felt that actually sounds better if you reorganize it a little bit. So I reorganized it to, through the narrow beam of his helmet light, all Jasper could see of the boy was a pair of low-cut boots and maybe 2 inches of ankle.
Yeah.
So 1 comma in there, reorganized so it kind of flows better, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. That works. Right. And then I have a conjunction junction that is mostly dialogue, but I really don't care.
We are really just like whatever.
As we established, we do not care that it's dialogue.
As we have established this episode, we are being fuzzy bitches. Fussy bitches.
Whether we will continue being fuzzy bitches forever. If this is the turning point, this is our fuzzy bitch era.
This is our fuzzy yeah. Oh, man. That also sounds like a high school ska band. It's like, hey guys, we're the fuzzy bitches.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will yeah. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
It wasn't my fault, but that's a temporary situation at best. It'll be okay, John. It's all gonna be okay. It took a bit of twisting, but Jasper was able to pull the radio up past his body. But thank you. It's why we've gotta get you out of here, buddy. But I'll get your husband out to you real soon here. It hurts. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. It sucks. It might just take a little while. It's Mark. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And now they're just going to leave me in that god-forsaken cave? ? It's not rescue work per se. Almost the opposite. It's only John that talks to me. It isn't John. It wasn't my fault. It's going to be okay. It's not my fault. It hurts. And just beyond the boy, grasping his outstretched arms, Jasper could barely make out another figure, one he recognized, and then several more. Finn.
Wow, it sounded almost like I was just listening to a like one-sided conversation on a phone for most of that.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like it had like the same kind of like, yeah. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Mark's here. It wasn't John. It's John.
Yeah.
I'm kind of having like having a phone in my head or a phone in my ear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Or it kind of sounded like the two guys were in the cave, and like he was handing the radio to Jasper as if Jasper's like and like talking to Jasper as if he's the one that's stuck in there. He's like, "We're gonna get you out of here," and stuff, because like it doesn't differentiate who's talking.
Yeah.
So it almost sounded like most of Jasper's dialogue was the other guy's dialogue to Jasper.
Yeah, for sure.
It's weird what happens when you take a bunch of sentences that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ends, or buts, and put them together into a story with sometimes hilarious and sometimes weird results, like this. Because there's always better words to use for those sentences.
Except for this case, because this was all dialogue, and
Well,
that's
mostly dialogue.
But fuck you, because we're fuzzy bitches
Well,
today.
I mean, I can do the shortened version without dialogue.
It's just gonna be the Jasper part and the Jasper part, and then that's it, right? It's gonna be like 3 sentences.
Yep, 3 sentences.
Yeah.
It took a bit of twisting, but Jasper was able to pull the radio up past his body. And just beyond the boy, grasping his outstretched arms, Jasper could barely make out another figure, one he recognized, and then several more. Finn.
Wow. That almost that could almost be a like also that right there could almost be a prompt for another creep, like for a creepypasta. like one of those little seed like little like micro fiction. Like there's flash fiction and there's just like micro fiction where it's like, all right, in 3 words make a creepy story. Or not in 3 words, in three sentences make a creepy story. Yeah, like that's yeah.
Indeed.
But Gamer, what do you have?
I got a little bit left, not much. So, regarding the switch between Jasper's lines and the voice in his head, I kind of wish that there was some different formatting, because it's like technically thoughts, you know?
Yeah. See, I
when
thought
it first started happening, I thought someone else was talking, and technically someone is, but not really.
Yeah. See, I thought so as well, except the fact that this story does, at least for like when I was reading, I was like trying to look for it, and I did notice that whenever the dialogue from John came up, it did specify that John was talking to Jasper, in his head. So I get what you're saying. Like it is technically like just what John is hearing, just what Jasper's hearing, but the story does go out of its way to differentiate that.
It does. Like I'm not gonna have a hard stance on this. I'm not gonna die on this hill, but I wonder if it'd be better in like brackets or something like that. I don't know. Yeah,
maybe. I also kind of thought that as well. So like you're not alone in that. And they do. I think I do note that they. I don't know if you picked this up because you're kind of blind to it sometimes. All of John's messages are done with italics. And we lost Gamer. I guess he missed the italics. So I guess we'll move on to actual thoughts. Oh.
Why don't italics move more? They should be like really slanted.
Yeah, no, I'm like looking at it like right now. Like I'm looking at the original text on creepypasta.wiki, and all of John's dialogue in quotes are italicized. Fuck.
Tell us.
You see, they could have been bolded. That would have made it more interesting. Yeah. Because like it would also like being bolded would also like show that they're like intrusive thoughts into his head.
Or one thing I've seen done before, although don't quote me on that because I cannot tell you one that I can reference. But like switching font would be a way to do it too, because it's like a it is like a normal human voice, but it's supernatural, So putting it in a different font would make it pop.
I think we saw that in Joey Fucknut stories.
Hell yeah.
Because and that's because like they were like different colors as well. Like they were like different, like they were black and blue and red, I think, in some cases.
Mm-hmm. But yes, that.
Yeah.
Right, it's my turn. Yes. So moving on, there's a sign that says "Experience Cavers is only," because it's apostrophe S only.
Yeah.
Which insinuates that it's caver is, or it's possessive cavers, but it's not.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Cavers without the apostrophe.
Yeah. It really. Yeah. Wait. Why is that apostrophe there at all?
I don't know, man.
Also, I thought for sure it was like danger. It warned. Experience beige.
You immediately went to beige.
That's why I started laughing. That's why I started laughing or like chuckling. I was like, oh god.
You're just like, oh wow, that is funny. That.
No, but you're right. Like I'm looking at it right now. It's like, oh yeah, why the hell does cavers have an apostrophe? It's not possessive at all.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
That you lot, Jasper asked Greg. You experienced beige? No, sir, the young man answered. His head hung sheepishly.
In his head, he's like, fuck, he knows I've experienced beige before.
I've played that Star Wars, I played that Star Trek.
Wow, blasphemy.
I played that Star Trek board game with the VHS tape.
Anyways, so yes. Next one. Jasper blanched through his drunken haze, Jasper blanched through his drunken haze, though from fear or rage he wasn't quite sure. So blanched is a word I didn't really know. It's just basically your face turning pale, mostly from fear or shock.
But also usually from like, usually that's what it means. Yeah.
Yeah. However, like I feel like there should be a comma in here. So instead of just Jasper blanched through his drunken haze, like I didn't immediately know what blanched was, so I thought it was a verb, like he was in the act of blanching something. Meanwhile, it's not. So I feel like it would read better if it was like Jasper, comma, blanched through his drunken haze, comma, though from fear or rage he wasn't quite sure. Or do it like Jasper was blanched through his drunken haze, instead of just Jasper blanched, because that makes it sound like a verb to me.
Just gonna double check something here. Yeah, I know you're probably right with that. I remember like blanching is actually what is another term for blanching? To make white or okay, I guess that is it. For some reason, I thought blanching was like something you did when you like were feeling sick as well, but my bad. Yeah.
Cool. Bad. That's all I got left for my grammar.
Okay. Well, then I suppose we'll move on to actual thoughts. I'm going to start with the image that is presented in the wiki on the wiki page. Great representation of the situation down in the in a cave rescue. Like we get a picture of a photo of a man inside a very tight cave, drilling the holes for the pittons to build the pulley and rope system.
Yep, for sure.
Like
without spoiling anything.
Yeah. So that's all I got to say about that. Do you have anything else to say about the images, guys, or the image?
I kind of have something to bring up, but it's tied to a note, so I'll get to it when I get to it.
Okay. Mikey, you're good? Okay. So I'll start with, I'll then continue on with this this quote. Well, this just keeps getting better, or this just keeps getting more complicated. You familiar with the weather around here, Greg? Not really. We're just visiting for spring break. Uh-huh. Well, it don't rain often, but when it does, it rains a whole bunch. Way Ben's situated upside down like he is, Any of you have a vehicle? Think you can go try to make it to the station and get some more help? No, sir. We hiked out here. Just brought some water and energy bars. We didn't think we were going to be going caving. Just saw the sign and thought it would be fun. Man, these kids are such slasher movie fodder.
Yeah, they are.
Hey man, what's like? Oh man, danger! Experienced cavers only. Let's go inside. Let's split up, guys. Like, let's go. Let's take different tonals.
Yeah.
Billy.
But we'd also not have a story.
Yeah, no, I know.
They
I just
were smart.
yeah. I just
But
couldn't
also,
help
you know,
it.
that's just like a thing that happens.
Yeah, as much as I like laugh, like, oh man, these guys are like movies. It's like, no, this is stuff that happened. Like, I know, like for a fact, like statistically, this is definitely a thing that happens in national parks all across America and and even Canada. To be honest, like to be fair.
Yeah.
So like this is like like dumb kids are gonna be dumb and drunk and do shit they're not supposed to do. That's just life.
Sometimes the end life.
Yeah, that's just life and death. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. Mr. Grant, Greg's voice cracked slightly. Sorry, Mr. Grant.
Nice.
Oh,
Oh, that was good.
I don't know. Mr. Grant. Greg's voice cracked slightly, his lower lip trembling. You don't think it's like you've done something like this before, right? You'd be able to get Ben out. You're sure he'll be okay? Jasper hesitated. Well, the phantom voice spoke up. You going to tell him the truth? The rescuer shook his head to clear it. Yeah, kid. Loads of times. Liar. So the first section of the story, like, because the story is kind of cut up in like with horizontal lines between like the present day and the flashbacks, and then like just keeps doing that. But this first section particularly filled me with a lot of like anxious tension as I was reading it for what was going to happen next. Like the story starts in media res, but then quickly gives us the rundown of the situation through character dialogue and interaction. And the fact that things just keep getting worse as far as like a rescue situation goes for Jasper, just chef's kiss for me. I was just like that anxious tension. I was like, oh shit, this is not I don't like this situation at all. And oh god, it just keeps getting worse for them. It was just like, it was like for me, it was the right amount of like anxious energy for like this kind of creepypasta or this kind of like creepy story. And then the next thing I have here, Jasper had been working for the Utah Institutional Trust Lands Administration for almost 7 years and rescued more than 10 cave climbers in every one of them. Despite that, he didn't think he'd ever seen anyone quite as stuck as John Edward Jones. The young man and a group of friends had decided the night before Thanksgiving to explore the famous Nutty Putty cave. And despite having some experience, John had gotten trapped in a precarious position. So the story was inspired partially by the song I Will Fail You by Demon Hunter. But it seems like the story was not that song was not the only inspiration for this song. Apparently, John Edwards Jones is a real cave death and victim of the Nutty Putty Caves near Utah Lake, Utah.
Yeah.
From back in 2009.
Yeah.
Now, I learned this after reading the story and while I was checking out the comments of the story, because I was just curious to see what like other people had commented on and stuff like that. And where someone mentions like they had like they liked the story and then and like it was really creepy and stuff. And then they like quote they ended it with like someone not looking up the Nutty Putty cave incident. I was like, oh wait, this is an actual incident. And then I like went and Googled Nutty Putty incident, and it's like straight up, like John Edward Jones was a real guy, and this whole the whole like flashback event is pretty well the same situation.
Yeah.
Like,
and earlier when we were talking about the picture, and I said I have a note on it.
is
that's
that
actual from the actual rescue attempt?
Oh my god!
That's
yeah.
actually one of the guys trying to.
Yeah. So as far as I can tell, like I tried to do a little bit of like searching on like the rescuers to see if I could get some names. But as far as I can tell, Jasper appears to be a fictional character created by Shadow Swimmer. Though the details around the rescue and like their flashbacks and stuff like that, and what went wrong and what happened to the rescuers, when they were trying to pull John out of that tunnel and stuff like that, are pulled almost directly from that incident. I honestly don't know how to feel about that fact. Like the fact that that John was a real person and a victim of this exact situation. On the one hand, it makes this story all the more grounded. And like that horror, that tension, that anxiety I was getting is like connected to something real. Like it comes through in the words. But then it makes me want to focus on the fact that Jasper's guilt is something more mundane and less supernatural, which is something I kind of will touch on a little bit later in my notes. This note was like written after all my other notes because that's when I found out about the connection to a real life event. But yeah, like the story suddenly made me want to focus more on like the mundane aspect of psychological guilt that Jasper was having, rather than like actually having some ghost creature trying to pull the person deeper into the tunnel. Just out of respect for the real world event that also like honestly happened pretty recently. Like this isn't like 100 years ago. Like 2009 is like about 14 years ago is when that happened roughly. But yeah, so it's I don't, yeah, the fact I'd want to like it made me like question like some of my like ideas about the story after the fact. Like fortunately I checked that out after the story, because like that would have really I think might have colored my perception on the story.
Lucky for you.
Did you read that first, or did you know about it ahead of time?
Comments. I found out about this being a real thing much earlier.
Okay.
Which kind of tainted everything.
Okay. Well, so and I got more to say about this, because like this I had to like do a little bit of not soul searching, but I had to do a little bit of like inner thinking about this whole thing. So yeah, the thing is here, I think Jasper's backstory could have been altered a bit more so that it wasn't directly riffing off of a real life tragedy. I don't want to sound all soapboxy, but for me, this kind of thing, if you're gonna lean so close to reality or even recent history as a baseline for baseline material of a story, it's gonna be a balance of sensitivity. And to that end, I want to go on record, I don't think this story is insensitive about the material. But it certainly tripped me up when I discovered just how close some aspects of this story were to real events. And it sort of colored my I don't know, maybe it's because like in my older age like this might not have affected me as much like when I was younger reading creepypastas. Nowadays, like when this kind of stuff pops up in creepypastas, I feel a little bit more like weary about it, because like it's real people and the stories about real people and such like that. And obviously this story is using it to show like survivor's guilt. And kind of have that be a major theme of the story, and it works really well. And the story itself doesn't straight up say like, oh, ghosts pulled John Edward Jones into the like deeper into the tunnels, and that's why it was like it was all like it has that little suggestion, that little tweak of suggestion, but it's not directly saying that. It's leaving it up to interpretation, and it keeps repeating. It's like it's just blood flowing to the brain and causing hallucinations, which is a real thing that happens when in those cases. So
He
Yeah.
He knew John's name.
Yeah, well, yes, but I'm not saying that's like. Well, I also got a little thing about the ending as well, like that may kind of trip it up to not being real at all. But I'll get to that in a second. But the story does kind of leave it like open end, like kind of off and on. Like it's like, well, because like one name like isn't like cemented proof that it's straight up supernatural. It could just be a coincidence, like again in his hallucination. But so I just kind of wanted to like put that out there because like upon finding that out about the story, I was like, oh, I gotta think about this for a second, like because it sort of it tainted my view suddenly of the story when I was finished reading it. So, but I'll continue to move on here. So actually, I'm gonna skip ahead for a second and go to the part where I was saying where like it might be super, like about the John part. So you like you said, gamer. So there's the quote here. All right, buddy. I'm gonna go give your friend some instructions, but then I'll be back to make sure you get out nice and smooth. Okay? He doesn't want me to leave. Ben's voice was muffled in reply. Those voices are just blood stuck pooling in your head, kid. It's wait, he? Jasper asked, perplexed. He says his name is John. And you're right, it does straight up say that. And I really like the constant use of the reassurances because it is 100% the logical explanation for the circumstances with real cave rescues, or like this kind of situation where somebody is like stuck like that. And then we get the name drop, and it puts that idea of of the explainable phenomena into question. It doesn't immediately remove it, but it does like have the person in that situation and even the reader questioning, wait, what is he seeing? Wait, that's a little coincidental that he'd know that the person that he'd say the person who's keeping him down there is named John. And it is a really effective tool for like making you question the mundane versus the fantastic. What we get at the very end of the story here is where it comes up to where is it here? Hang on. This part here. So at the very end of the story, it's Ben. Jasper asked the protruding feet. He felt a thrill of fear at how very still the young man was. Jasper spent several long moments mentally willing a response, and then several more. And right before that, we also get him kind of like the same thing happen, like as with the Nutty Putty rescue. Like the piton broke off, whizzed by his head, and Ben, like John, went further into the tunnel, or went back to the tunnel where he was, where they had started lifting him up from. And the story was like, for me at the beginning of the story, like when I finished reading the story, I felt like before I knew about the Nutty Putty thing, I was like, God damn it! It's like I was really hoping that this wouldn't end the way the flashback was, but I guess it was inevitable, like based on the technical theme requirements of this story and the contest. Like writing a story that has an ending, that the ending is the beginning. Like that's basically it's history repeating itself is the motif that the author has gone with for this. Mm-hmm. And on the other on the one hand here, like it's also sort of like that Inception thing, like because at the end here it's like, is Ben like trapped the same way as John, like, or is Ben going to have the same outcome as John? Because like, but it ends before we get that. Just like it ends. It's sort of the way this ending is, where like Jasper has like set up all the pitons and set up all the rigging and stuff like that, and is doing the same thing for the rescue, and then the exact same thing happens. And dust comes down on him, like with John, except it's all wet. Like he was all wet and stuff in this cave because it had been raining and water had been seeping down. So it kind of made me wonder, like, did the ending of this story, like, was the ending of this story like more of a mindfuck than just simply like us waiting for Ben to respond? and it never comes because the story ends. Did it end even earlier where like all of what had happened, like basically they hadn't gotten the like where so what I'm trying to say here is I think at the end here where like all the events, like all the catastrophe happens where like the rigging snaps again, I think that's all in Jasper's head, or at least I think that could be interpreted as all being in his head, and like Ben is still stuck in the spot where he was because they hadn't gotten to that part yet. It was just Jasper suddenly like kind of like what's the word, like it was Jasper like just sort of like spacing out and visualizing the worst possible scenario again, because it happened like because he's been haunted for years by the previous incident. So yeah, I kind of think the story, like the ending here with the story, I feel it could be that like the way it is, like as written and like face value, like the same thing happened over again, it repeated, or it could be interpreted that Jasper had just had like another flashback, but it was more vivid, and so he thought he was more in the present, and the same thing happened again with Ben. That happened with John, where he got trapped and stuck again in the tunnel. But yeah, unfortunately, that the knowledge of the new of the actual Nutty Putty incident kind of paints my perspective of this story a little bit more than I think it should. Based on my rambling here of like trying to get across my suggestion of like that this story, like the ending here it's a psychological horror. It's not actually supernatural at all. Like, and that the story ends before we can get as a reader get a conclusion to that. Like, was it real? Is the situation cemented in reality, or was the catastrophe that happened all in Jasper's head, as he was reliving John's death while setting up Ben's rescue.
But you'd also have no way to confirm that
unless we talk to the author and find out if that was the situation. In character, yeah, sure. But like
there would be no way to clarify it unless he got one of the kids to go down and see him as well, because everything could be in his head at that point.
Well, yeah, and that's actually when people do this in stories, like that's the point. It's like it's supposed to create that like that anxious energy of like, what the fuck happened? Like, did this happen? Like, did history repeat itself? Was Jasper hallucinating? Like, it's supposed to end like this so that you as a reader feel this inconclusiveness, because that's where you get the anxiety or the tension or the blue
balls.
Yeah, basically the blue balls. Oh, that's what horror is a lot of the time. Is like the endings are anticlimactic. Especially like psychological horror ones, because you're just like, what the fuck happened? Like, it's like a mind fuck. It's again, it like happens with various horror movies where like after you walk out of the theater, it's like, what the fuck did we just finish? What's just fucking happening at the end there? Like, what? And then you spend like a half hour to an hour with your friends after the movie talking about what the fuck happened at the end of the movie. So yeah, like, I don't know. I just wanted to like kind of get this out. Like, this is probably very just like thought salad, like just jumbled and maybe a little like conspiracy boardy in my head. I hope it's coherent for you guys and for the audience. When I was like thinking of this stuff, but yeah, and this all stemmed from the fact that like, yeah, the use of a real life tragedy for the backstory of the character, but like, I think it works for the story because like that's the focus of the story, is not the paranormal aspect of this, of like, not whether or not it's paranormal or if it's a mundane like hallucinations and stuff like that, but the story is really focused on the grief that Jasper has and the fact that he's put in that same situation again, and so he's having to like dredge up those old memories and those old feelings of guilt.
You say that, but like the focus of this is the previous tragedy. Like,
yeah.
The previous real life person is made into being a an evil spirit in this one, basically.
Not any. It could be interpreted as an evil spirit. I think it's just literally Jasper's guilt, because like Jasper,
it's the antagonist in this story.
Yeah,
Is a
but it's
real
not.
person.
Yes, but it's not strictly demonizing the person. It's a phantom, and it keeps mentioning it's a phantom. And phantoms can be interpreted as like basically a figment of somebody's imagination. So like this is like basic. You're right. He is demonized, but it's basically like a demon inside Jasper's brain. Like it's his inner demon. Like his guilt has manifested as John's voice, like constantly tormenting him because John feels has survivor's guilt, or has like the post-traumatic stress syndrome from a failed rescue attempt. So,
Yeah.
like that's what it is. Like I'm not like I think actually honestly for the story, I don't like again like I want to put on the record. I don't think the story treats the material disrespectfully at all. I think it does it really well because this makes sense for it doesn't. It's not saying that John Edward Jones's spirit, like the actual spirit of John, is tormenting him. It always kind of represents it as a voice in the back of Jasper's head tormenting him. And he's even like we even have a flashback where he's at a therapist talking about it, and that's and have people talking about
life. That is what you would rationalize it as.
Yeah,
if an actual spirit was fucking with you in real life, that is how you would rationalize it.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. Like this story could be interpreted both ways. Like if you want to be more supernaturally inclined, then yeah, sure, maybe it is John's vengeful spirit because like he's pissed off at the rescue for not saving him. Or more tactfully, maybe it's just all in Jasper's head. And it's just his inner demons. Like it's made to be so that you can like it's left up to the reader. It doesn't straight up say one way or the other, which I think is the tactful way to do this. So, yeah. I had some other notes in here that were like kind of silly, but I don't know if I want to do them anymore after talking through this.
I mean, it's up to you.
I mean, I will say actually the one other thing that the story actually did give for me, and it's specifically like with the given the real world implications of it. It's like, so the quote here is the birth canal tunnel he'd been trying to find was narrow enough, but Ed's push, the one John had accidentally gone down, was even smaller. At only about 10 inches wide and 18 inches high, the tunnel was so narrow only one person could access John's feet at a time. The tight confines were further exacerbated by the fact that the tunnel bore almost straight down. Any attempt to pull John out would be in almost direct opposition to gravity. Yeah, like, so this is another thing that this story like really got me with the anxious energy and so that. It's probably because as a real person, I do have claustrophobia as one of my like fears. Like fucking hate tight spaces, like specifically like tunnels and stuff like that. So like I got chills just visualizing some of these scenes in my head. And like, cause like I can't even imagine seeing a hole in the ground that small, like 18 inches by or 10 inches by 18 inches, and just being like, I can go through that. Like the only caves I will go in need to be walk-ins. I will not crawl into a cave like on my belly. Like, I'm sorry, I will not do that. Like,
caves.
Yeah, exactly. I got a Christopher Walken through those caves. That's and so like this story all like and I even comment, this is again before I found out about the real incident. This story was giving me banal horror at its best. Like, at least for me, because of the fear I kind of like have of tight crawl spaces, basically like this, and getting stuck. More specifically, getting stuck in those spaces would be a nightmare to me. And so, like for me, this story really worked in terms of like the fear factor of like the unnervingness of a creepypasta. It just then amped it up when I realized, oh wait, this was a real incident. In fact, even the the details we're kind of getting here, like in the quote I just gave, are kind of are I think from like the actual incident with John. So
Wait, there's quotes.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, like I just mean like the quote, like
quotes from the incidents.
No, but I mean the quote I gave, like the like because John was stuck in John was stuck in like the birth canal tunnel and stuff like that. But yeah, so, and the fact that like in the story, like it says like that John and his friends went down to a tunnel after Thanksgiving, like right before Thanksgiving, and like that's exactly what happened with John Edward Jones in real life. Like it was the day before Thanksgiving, and they went down to a tunnel. So, yeah, it was. The story got to me. So, what do I have here?
So yeah, don't worry about like avoiding any like silly notes you have, because like you skip all your silly notes, we might not have anything else to talk about.
I mean, fair, yeah. I think the one note I have is like it's just like yeah. So the next thing I have here, yeah, the next thing I had was basically just like explaining. I like how I like how the flashbacks are done like over the course of the story, because like they're separated by horizontal lines, and they flash back to Jasper's like past and stuff like that, and we really get a sense as to Jasper's basically his spiral into guilt and like dealing with this situation, and like how his life was affected by the death of John, even outside of like having a voice in the back of his head constantly tormenting him. Like he doesn't want to go back to taking those kind of jobs, like the rescue responder jobs and stuff like that. He wants to just like, he doesn't really want to go back into a park. He doesn't want to go to back into a cave ever again because of it. And that's like a real shit that happens to like some responders when they have like a disaster happen where like they aren't able to save somebody from a cave, where they are like affected. It's the same, like a lot of responders do end up getting PTSD because of these sort of situations. So again, this story has like a hint of like there might be something supernatural afoot, but most of it I think is mostly like psychological. And it's a lot of like, and it's treating it more like psychological horror to me than the supernatural blend. But the next thing I have, yeah, the last thing I have for like, and this is like kind of the one silly thing that I will kind of like try to lighten the mood with a little bit of gallows humor, I guess, is with this quote here. Jasper, you've been coming to see me for the better part of 10 years, ever since your friend Mark bodily dragged you out of your apartment. This is just a roving park job. It's not rescue work per se. Almost the opposite. You'll be doing preventative action, keeping idiot tourists away from dangerous sites. And to this, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, wow, and he failed in that job too. I kid.
Yeah.
like I like. Remember what I said about sensitivity in the story? Whoops. But yeah, it was just like, yeah, yeah, it's just like it is kind of funny. He was given this job, but he couldn't even do that. No, anyway, sorry. But yeah, I guess
he
that's
also didn't have a choice in this situation.
yeah. He was just like he happened to be like going by and saw that he just didn't get there in time, basically. But yeah, that's the end of my notes for the story. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
All right. So, my actual thought here. So, I envisioned the teen being sort of upside down, stuck in the cave.
Yeah.
Because of the blood rushing to his head, right?
Yeah.
So, I have this quote here. The tunnel widened just enough that Jasper could glimpse Ben's face past his body. His eyes were closed in a rictus of pain, arms stretched over his head, his shirt soaked in rainwater almost to the shoulders.
So he drowned.
Yeah, I guess you could
Yeah.
say that Ben drowned.
God damn it.
I mean, he didn't die at that point, but yeah.
Wow. Wow. So I'm glad. Also, I'm glad I'm not the only one who because I didn't put in my notes, but I definitely saw that it was where the rainwater had gotten up to his shoulders. And I was like, so Ben's face is in the water then at that height, unless it's more just. At the same time though, it could just be that. It's just the rainwater is all over the part of the tunnel where he's been. But it's soaked onto his shoulders as he was kind of stuck there and probably wiggling a little bit. So, but
also,
it definitely
referring to the back of his shoulders, not I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind
not
of
necessarily a completely vertical shaft. It could be a 45-degree down situation.
Yeah, enough that gravity is going to be a problem for the rescuers.
If he has room to move his neck a little bit or turn his head to the side, he can kind of keep a nose up higher than his shoulders.
Yeah. It's not a great situation at all. I fucking thanks. I hate it. This kind of shit actually squigs me out sometimes. You want to creep me out, and I'll read it. I'll still read it because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm a little I like to hurt myself. but if you want to squig me out in your creepypastas, give me stories where a person is stuck in a cave tunnel system, and then maybe also throw in a monster somewhere in there, and stuck in with them to make it more supernatural, fantastical. But you really want to squig me out? The tunnel stories are really what get me.
So take notes at home, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got recommendations? Yeah.
I also had a Ben drowned reference in here somewhere. Where's that?
God, I can't believe I missed that opportunity. Yeah, I totally gapped. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was when Jasper's speaking to Craig, and he says, well, it don't rain often, but when it does, it rains a whole bunch. Way Ben's situated upside down like he is. Any of you have a vehicle? Think you can try to make it to the station and get some help? So when I read that, I'm I really like how Ben's problem is set to escalate by the simple fact that it's going to rain. So he's going to have to work quick, or he'll have to tell the kids' friends that Ben drowned.
Ta-da! Yeah. Okay, I have one little extra thing that I was gonna keep out of my thoughts, but I did keep out of my notes. But I'm gonna pipe in because I've been cheered up a little bit more from our little conversation here. I did actually like when he says that John the name is he says his name is John. When I read that, I was like, Donna. What? It does insert a little hint at there being something supernatural, but again, it could also be something coincidental, that just happens to be a name that that the kid's blood-addled brain says.
You're saying
So
that John is a common name?
Yeah, John is a very common name.
That's a joke.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, so
I didn't really take that as a suggestion that it might be supernatural. I took that as a confirmation.
Yeah. It could be done as a confirmation. You could see it as a confirmation or a suggestion. It doesn't. It could go either way.
Yep.
But so, Mikey, do you have anything more than a Ben Drown joke?
Dare you insult that? Make it sound like that's not a...
No, that's. Yeah, I mean, yeah, true.
Aside
That
from
was...
the Ben Drown joke, I don't have any further notes.
Do you have anything? Do you have anything? Or do you have anything else important to say? No. Remember, I am a fussy bitch today. A fuzzy bitch today. Yeah.
No, that was my main actual thought. You've covered pretty much everything else I wanted to say previously. So
okay. Then I suppose we'll move on to Gamer.
Let's see. So when I first read the title, I was like, it sounds kind of silly.
It does.
So you're gonna have to work at it to creep me out. It did it.
Yeah,
Just
it
because
does it
of the
real fast too.
aspects, it did it pretty good.
Yep.
Goddamn.
Also, have you looked up what the name was originally going to be called before it was called Nutty Putty?
No.
Nutty Putty Cave was originally going to be called Silly Putty Cave because of how like malleable the and like how like because of the texture of the rock and clay and stuff like that in the cave, and like the way that it was like it looked like it had been shaped and stuff like that. Like that's why they were going to call it Silly Putty, but because of like I think it's actually because of the like a licensing or like a copyright issue kind of thing, they switched to Nutty Putty.
Fair. Also, I thought you were referring to the story had a previous name.
No. I mean the actual like cave in Utah, that's called Nutty Putty. Yeah.
Gotcha. Either way, I'll move on. So I'll just read this quote first. This is pretty early on. Hang on, wait. Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. I was going to read this out of order. So I don't have an initial quote. Basically, like you go through the start of the story and it's describing that there's a dude stuck in a cave and all you see is his ankle, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually it gets down to the point where it says the real trouble is how he's stuck upside down like that. Too long and the blood will start to pool. And how long has he been stuck there? So everything before that, I didn't know he was upside down because it wasn't described to be upside down until that point.
That is true.
So the first way that I saw that, actually, how far down is it? It's a few paragraphs, but either way, the first way that I saw it was basically just like you're going through a cave and you see like feet dangling from the roof. Like there's a shaft that goes up. Is how I first imagined it. Because I
really?
wasn't told anything else. Yeah.
Okay.
Because all it said was it described feet, and the picture has just like this shaft. So I imagine if it's like that guy, but you move him up so you just see his feet, almost like there's a dude hanging there. Is how I saw it.
Well, yeah, because I honestly like when I first, not gonna lie, when I first saw this, I thought he was like in a wall, like adjacent the guy.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was like a horizontal. I did also think it was like horizontal. I didn't picture vertical until like we got to that point in the story. But when it says like Jasper asked at the protruding feet, I immediately visualized like a horizontal like somewhere in a wall. Not on the ceiling, not on the floor, just in the wall.
Yeah.
So
we were both wrong because it wasn't described until later.
Yeah. So that definitely is something it could be like at the top, like all Jasper could see as he clung down a vertical shaft through his narrow beam of his helmet light or something like that.
Well, no, that makes it sound like Jasper's in the vertical shaft. I'm saying that Ben, his orientation is the confusing part to me.
Yeah.
So it should be like, where's the line of his ankles? A pair of low-cut boots, maybe 2 inches of ankle sticking out of the floor of the cave.
Yeah.
Because like it's coming, he's upside down completely.
Yeah.
To an extent, it might be an angle, but yeah. Because again, like how I saw it, I thought he was in the ceiling. Like I assumed, like a Half-Life barnacle basically situation. Like grabbed him and pulled him into the ceiling. Is how I saw it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how I wish it went. A little bit more.
I really wish it had been something like it says, I think in the beginning of the story, where it's like it looked like the cave had just like slurped him up.
Yeah, basically. But it could have literally done that. And like even at the start, he doesn't talk or nothing. So that would have been a good like you can do that with it being a monster, even if it killed Ben at that point, because it could just be puppeting him to basically lull the rescuers into a false sense of security so it can attack them too.
Yeah. It's actually a mimic.
Yeah. Basically.
Or this is what the Dainai house is in its natural environment. Like it just dwells in caves and then hollows out people to like use as lures for mother people.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. But I'll move on from there. So Greg asked Jasper if he saved many people before. And Jasper says, "Yeah, I've done it," and then like John's voice in his head calls him a liar.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at the start of the next section, it flat out says that John has rescued more than 10 cavers.
Yes.
So
No,
where's
more than
the
one.
lie?
Yeah. Here's the thing. This is the same situation as comments online for like pieces of artwork and stuff you do. Like you post something online and you get a ton of positive comments, but you only remember the one negative one. I think that's what's happened. That's the psychology behind what's happened here. Is like Jasper has in his past saved countless other people in caves, but it only takes one to ruin you psychologically.
I mean, yeah, but he's still not lying. He has rescued many people.
Yeah. Well, it's just like it's the same thing. Like when Mark is trying to get a hold, it's like it's not your fault, and it's and Jasper is just yelling at Mark through the phone. It's like, yeah, no, Mark didn't. Like Jasper did his job, did everything he was supposed to do to try and help Mark or help John. It's just so shit happens. Like something went wrong that really wasn't in anybody's control, and that led to John's death. And Jasper, and even in the actual articles but yeah, like when I was looking up the actual incident, the person in charge at the time had said that like countless of his fellow like responders on that rescue had suffered survivor's guilt and PTSD and like left the career as a result of that incident, unable to handle the reality of it. So
even that was taken for this story too?
Yeah, well, the idea of the grief and stuff of that was taken for the story.
All right. Well, either way, I still don't think he's lying in this situation, so he shouldn't be believing that it's a lie.
I'm with you on this. I like Jasper is not at fault here at all. It's just, unfortunately, the demons in his head are telling him otherwise, which is a very common psychological thing.
Okay, but I feel like the demon in his head should have been saying like, yeah, but not all of them.
It could, but it's obviously like it's trying to like goad him into despairing even further. So
it would. Oh, whatever. I'm not going to keep fighting you on this because I'm talking to a fool at this point. So I keep saying the same thing and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll move on. Anyways, kind of brushed on it. I like how the flashback transitions happen, like the lines in between them, very clear page breaks, so we know that there's a swap. Most stories should do that, and most stories don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The word exasperated, I believe you said before.
Exasperated? Oh, exasperated.
No, it's not exasperated.
Oh, exacerbated. Exacerbated.
Sure, that one. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it
makes something that's bad worse, basically.
Yep.
So that's a thing. So in the flashback, when John was taken back to the rescue attempt and like something like flew past his face and scratched him, the way it was written, I assumed that it was some creature that flew out and hit him and then grabbed John and pulled him back in.
Yeah,
is how I first assumed it, because it's kind of up in the air of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like that in the second flashback we get clarification that it was one of the carabiners, whoever that's pronounced, that went flying up to hit him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that it sets you up to assume one thing and then explains it something else. But it didn't bother me like some stories do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay. I need to start prefacing this with like, this happens at the therapist's office. So I'm not just reading a quote with no context. Either way, this happens at the therapist's office when he's talking to the therapist. And he says, he being Jasper says, okay, but what if I find one that's stuck, in regards to him getting a new job and finding someone who's stuck? Then the therapist says, then you call for help. Then you call for help. You call for help, and then that help will get them out. You'll be the hero, and you'll finally be able to put those ghosts to rest. Just one ghost, Doc. It's only John that talks to me. Jasper, we've gone over this. We've gone over this and over this. It isn't John. John's dead. The ghosts aren't technically real. It's just a figure of speech, a metaphor. Okay, but here's the thing. He has been going to the same therapist for 10 years. So I feel like that's really insensitive to him talk about ghosts like this. To like use that figure of speech knowing Jasper this whole time. And
I see.
Struggling with the ghosts of his past. And he's like literally saying put these ghosts to rest and everything.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's trying to convince him that it's not a ghost. He's not doing a good job, is what I'm trying to say. Because I feel like, 10 years in, he would know certain trigger words to not say around him.
Or he could just be exacerbated. But it's like, John, we've been over this. It's just like, yeah. He just could be a dick. A little bit.
Yeah, but he said the ghost thing before that.
Yeah, that's
when
true.
He was like very calm.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could have been handled a little more
tactfully,
sensitively. Yeah.
I mean, also the therapist is also just human, so like they could have just slipped up.
I suppose, but yeah, 10 years though. Then
still, people fuck up even after 10 years of doing something. So
yeah, I feel like 10 years in, you know them better than most of their family knows them as a therapist.
Yeah.
But either way, I'll move on. My last note is basically just like, as creepy and dark as all this is, the whole concept of people who die in caves and like potentially becoming like vengeful spirits or something, like the concept is cool. When it's not directly labeled as real people.
Yeah.
Like
I think that's honestly my big thing with the story is that the names aren't filed off of this story.
Yeah.
Like this could have drawn, not to take away from take the spotlight from you for a second. I'm apparently hopping off back onto that soapbox that I said wasn't a soapbox. But like I really feel like you can draw inspiration from real life events, but and respectfully make like respect them, but also not like straight up reference them. Like you can nod to the to actual events, to draw inspiration from for a tragic horror story, because that's what a lot of horror stories do, is they derive ideas from real life events. In fact, a lot of horror stories are written as a catharsis, because that's how we tackle tragedies. Is we write a horror story, and this story is definitely trying to do that. It's just, yeah, I'm always a little iffy when you start using like direct quotes and direct references.
Are there direct quotes? You said that twice so far.
From what I'd have to like go back and actually like look at the articles I was looking at, but they seemed really damn similar to like some of the things that were said in this story about John's circumstances.
Yeah.
So because again, the story says that him and his friends went caving out like around Thanksgiving. That's exactly what happened with John. In fact, actually, the guy who was there when John died, or when John when everything failed, I think it's almost exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like a piton broke and the pulley system dislodged.
Yeah.
So, or not a piton, but the carabiner, the word that we're having difficulty saying.
Carabiner, I think it is.
Yeah, the carbiner. Yeah, the carbiner. Yeah. Like that broke and caused him to slip back in, and he died from like cardiac arrest. The real John.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, like this story really affected me after I found out about that. It's like, oh man, like it was a really good story until I found out the truth behind like the actual incident and like just how close this story was to that.
But either way, you're getting into final thoughts here. I would like to continue my note here.
Continue, yes.
It has nothing to do with the real life event.
I apologize. I thought you were going that way. Okay, sorry.
No, I was not at all. Okay. Either way, the whole the whole
Keep
concept of like someone who dies in a cave and them becoming a spirit and all that is potentially cool. But like the real life connections, it's a little bit poor taste in my opinion. However, for all we know, this like isn't the spirits of the dead at all. Like it could just be some creature that can take on the appearance of whatever it wants. You know, if it is something that just grabbed like the stuck caper and pulled them in and everything, like maybe they're able to read minds, like pick a person who would cause the researcher to like the most fear or worry to like stop them from rescuing the people that the monster's trying to get. Or if it's some kind of humanoid monster thing and Jasper just saw it as John because he's not exactly 100% anymore, is the other thing. Like, it still could be some weird creature that's grabbing people in caves, but he's just seeing it that way because he's going through shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's hallucinating. Or could be hallucinating. Yeah. I love how you guys went like supernatural and I'm the one defending the mundane, like psychological horror in this one. Like,
that's how it goes sometimes.
It's weird. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I would be right on there with you if the names are fouled off.
Yeah. I think that's our biggest takeaway is like the names being direct references to an actual event kind of taint the story a little bit, even though the story
references directly taken from the event.
directly referenced. But the story itself doesn't outwardly like, it's not outwardly offensive about it. It's just like, I think the story has actually like gotten that very tentative balance between like about being sensitive about this sort of subject, like about a real world event and stuff like that. It's just, it would have been so much better if it had not been directly referencing things.
By the way, Mikey, you've been quite quiet and you haven't really like chimed up in regards to like any of the real life connections to this. Did you actually know that it happened before we told you?
Nope. I didn't even look it up. I just read the story.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised you didn't react at all.
Well, I mean, once you find it out, it's like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting, but
yeah,
I've already made my opinion about the story, so.
See, then there's me, where it's like I found it after. It's like, and now I had to do a little bit of soul searching. It's like, do I still recommend this story? I mean,
my question to you though, Mikey, is this knowledge, has it changed your opinion on the story? Because that's part of the reason that we do this. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our opinions change through our notes. I guess we'll get to that when we get to our thoughts, but keep that in mind, basically.
Yeah.
And get to that when we get to that. For now, I'm done with my notes. Cultist, go ahead.
Well, we're going on to final thoughts. So I had to do a little bit of soul searching after I finished the story and found out about the stuff, the nitty gritty of the actual events. Mm-hmm. You know what? I still love this story. I think that the story met all the requirements of that contest that it was part of. Like, I listened to the song after the fact as well. And the lyrics kind of match the themes here of like a broken man who falls into a cycle of his own guilt and has the horror of history repeating itself in front of him, like presented to him again. The question I was kind of grappling of like the mundane versus the paranormal in this story, it is there, but to me, it's not the focus. And I think that helps the story quite a lot. Like, given that I learned like what I learned about Nutty Putty cave incident after the fact, this is more focused on a personalized horror of guilt and the situation and characters involved or in the aftermath of that than anything. It's not the whole like question of the phantom being a demon, like an actual demon or a mental demon, like an inner demon of the person, is really semantics. And it's up for the reader to decide whether or not they want to see this through the lens of something supernatural, or see it through the lens of a guilt-ridden man tackling his own inner demons while this tragedy repeats itself. So all this said, all the stuff I've said and done, like all the soul searching I did after the fact, reading the story and finding out about the truth of behind the incident, I'm still going to recommend this story, though if you don't dig stories that deal with claustrophobia and caving tragedies, maybe pass this one. But as it's written, it's written very well. I was tense the entire time. I got creeped out by a lot of the circumstances involving it. It was very enthralling. Like a lot of my notes were kind of sparse. Even the more lengthy ones were pretty sparse because I was just kept reading and wanted to see where it was going to go. The ending, the way it ended, it repeated. So the ending was the beginning basically, and that theme actually kind of comes throughout most of the story, with like various lines kind of getting repeated, or like various like themes in sentences getting repeated over and over again. So I think the story is very well written. I honestly think it is tasteful for what it's presenting here. Maybe next time pull a little bit away from like a real life inspiration, like maybe file some names off. The next time the next time somebody the next time the author writes something like that's this close to something real. But otherwise, I still enjoyed the story for how creepy it was and how engaging it was. So yeah, I am still going to recommend it. Just with the caveat of, if you do have claustrophobia or you just don't care for caving tragedies, maybe skip on it. So, Mikey, these stands for evil.
Well, I liked the fact that all the supernatural stuff could be in his head, because he's been dealing with trauma for years.
Yeah, 10 years at least.
Yeah. So the I like that it leaves it up in the air whether or not there actually is a ghost or not a ghost, or it's just he's reliving the past, but the ghost is there, and it's like, well, you're gonna fail again type thing, because this is the exact same scenario. And for that, I like it, although at the same time Ben drowned, so there was nothing he could do.
Yeah. I mean, the water. Well, the tunnel was probably deeper, so the water didn't go that far. Although if it was like the water rose up to his shoulders, then yeah, he's dead. But if like
yeah, his shirt was soaked in rainwater almost to the shoulders. So
yeah, that's not a good look.
And it's not like the rainwater would be filling that up quickly.
Yeah.
So he's been under for quite a while.
Yeah.
Wasn't he like moving somewhat recently though?
He was also like, yeah, he'd move his feet to as like an affirmative.
Because he was like signaling before he was pulling him up.
Yeah.
So
I think yeah.
He couldn't have been underwater or dead.
No,
because the water would have like made it harder to hear, and also dying would make it harder to move. I think
what it was trying to describe was like the water was just dampening basically like either the top or bottom of his shoulders. Like, and that, so like the water had just soaked that far along his shoulders, rather than like it was filling up the tunnel, though it doesn't quite clearly state that.
Yeah, because like the head's above the shoulders is the thing.
Yeah. So that could have been written a little bit clearer, but
yeah,
I think the orientation would help with that.
Yeah,
like describing the orientation better. Because if he's completely vertical, upside down, then the very first thing that's getting hit is
his face.
Well,
no, not even his head.
Hands. His hands would be first. So maybe the soaking is just like the wetness is just soaking through his shirt.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Because his hands were out forward.
Yeah. And clothes are very absorbent. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so that said, I did end up enjoying the read. the fact that there is potentially historical relevance because it's loosely based off of a event that actually happened.
Loosely.
Well, here's the thing. It's not so it's the backstory of Jasper is based on a real event. The story itself here, there is not I think the Ben situation and Jasper himself are fictional characters created based off of that real event.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the backstory behind Jasper's trauma is a real event. Like that was just straight up pulled. So
yeah. So that being said, it still doesn't change my opinion because he basically has like PTSD.
Yeah.
From the first incident, which is a very real issue. So, the fact that he's almost dealt with it because he can go spelunking,
or the fact that he's willing to go back into that cave to save that boy, is it's also honestly I was really hoping for a redemption arc.
Now, Now, I will say that doesn't this story not start and end at the same place? Because isn't the first cave, doesn't it get sealed?
Well, no,
they didn't start literally at the exact same spot.
Yeah, no, this is
the exact same thing happened.
Yeah, it's a different national park. It's a different cave. It's not the Nutty Putty cave system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be different. What I think it's like, it starts with him seeing the kid's feet protruding from the wall, and him asking if he's okay, and then waiting, and then it cuts. The ending is him seeing the kid feet protruding out of the wall, and asking if he's okay, and waiting, fearful now, and we're never getting a response because it cuts to black.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually going to be, when I first read the writing prompt, I thought it was going to be actually what happened. Like, the first thing you read is the end of the story, and then it goes back and you find out how it got there, and then you get there again with more context. But I like the way that it did this time.
Mm-hmm.
This is also not my final thoughts.
Yeah,
He keeps bringing up stuff that's interesting to talk about that
right?
I didn't write down.
Yeah, that's honestly why I've been like interrupting as well. Is like because I apparently did have more to say. I just like I wanted to I had to interact with somebody to do it to say it.
Yeah. So with all that said, I'm still going to recommend this.
Okay. Gamer.
Yeah. So I've watched a good bit of like caving videos online.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and I always do worry when watching those, like what happens when shit goes sour, especially like if they're right there by themselves and stuff like that. Like, it's concerning.
I hate it. Like, yeah, I'm honestly with you. Like, I watched a bunch of Mr. B. Allen's storytelling like videos on YouTube last year, and a lot of them ended up being cave stories. Thinking now, I think one of them might have been the John Edward Jones incident.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are like, I actually had to stop watching them, like watching some of his videos, because he would just keep doing these caver videos, and I was just getting more and more like paranoid and like.
Oh, I mean watching stuff where like the people are actually doing the caving themselves, not talking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I watched a bunch of like cave rescues.
Oh,
videos, or cave death videos where it's like, oh fuck,
dude.
Well, that's what I had to stop watching those because the stories got kind of started getting into my head. I was like, oh fuck, I hate it.
I just hate people spelunking in caves. Like I've been watching and keeping up to date with Ghost Town Living, like Cerro Gordo.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's so many there's miles and miles of caves, and he learned caving by himself. Basically,
it's like
at the start of that, he's going down with just like a GoPro.
Now, is he still walking?
He's by himself too, so if shit happens, like no one's gonna save him.
Yeah, like is he walking most of the time though, or is he like does he have to get on his belly and crawl?
Descending at some points.
Okay, yeah, no, I couldn't do that. Like I could not.
He has learned a lot. Like he's really good at it now, and he does go with other people now. But early on, it's like,
yeah, I hate like what compels a man or a woman, a person, really, to go to see a hole in the ground and just like hold my beer. And drops the beer like because nobody's there, and just goes into a cave system without informing anybody. And
Adventure.
yeah, I guess that's it. Like, it's the thrill of adventure that really compels people to do that. And I just like, I see that, I was like, fucking crazy. I'll walk into a cave, but I am not getting on my stomach and crawling into a tight space.
There's a lot of things that people will do that other people won't do. Like,
that's true. Yeah.
Would you go like over 200 miles an hour on a freaking like speed bike?
No.
Like one stone and you're done.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. That's. I also have an issue with
different.
speed.
Is the long and short of that.
Yeah. That's why I read creepypastas. I can experience like those creepy like and like terrifying and thrilling events from the safety of words.
Yeah, basically. But either way,
yeah.
Through me like watching stuff like that, I had a very good visual of everything that happened in this story because I've seen all this sort of stuff before.
Gotcha.
Not people being stuck, but visually, what the cave looks like, some of the tools and stuff that they use, I get it all. So,
and yet you guys haven't finished Ted the Caver. No.
It's a lot of reading.
It's the OG creepypasta, though.
I'm sure it is, but we also have a weekly show we have to do.
That's true. Yeah.
I also have a weekly D&D session I have to prepare for and do every day. Well, not every day, but every week I prepare for it to do it once a day, once a week. I can say words.
Who says I can't?
Fuck you, it's fine. Either way, I'll move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, visually everything's described quite well. The direction of him being stuck notwithstanding. They kind of clarified later, but I kind of feel like they could have clarified it more. Because in this sort of thing, I feel like this happens a lot of times. I should be seeing. Sorry, when the character is seeing the scene for the first time, I should also be seeing the same scene in my mind with the same details that they have. Is the way that I view most creepypastas and stories in general. Because if you're going to describe a scene, give us all the detail that's important. Like, I don't care about like frivolous little details that don't matter, but when it's like the pivotal part of the scene, it should be described quite well, or at least described enough,
Mm.
But either way, that sort of part, like the direction of him, is like minor. It didn't really bother me enough to make it a burden on the story to make me not enjoy the read of the story. However, because I already howevered, so now it's however, the realization that this is a real incident, names and all, really put a damper on the story for me, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, I was already taking the story pretty serious from the get-go, but that's when it got dark. Like,
like real world dark.
Yeah, and like not in the good way, because it's dark. It's dark as good way as in it's a horror story I'm reading. Like, dark is usually good, but I don't know. It just felt kind of, I don't want to say skeevy, but I don't know. It felt weird.
I absolutely understand what you're exactly what you're saying. Like, I had to do some soul searching. Like, after I finished reading the story and found out about Nutty Putty, I was like, I need to like, do I still want to recommend this story? Like it definitely painted, or it tainted my view of the story because of how closely this one riffs on that event.
Is riffing the right word? That sounds like it's making fun of.
Well, no, or like I use riffing as like
the event.
Yeah, parallels the event. Because it straight up uses it as the backstory for the character that's the main focus of the story.
Yeah,
like they are a fiction. I'm assuming Jasper's a fictionalized, because I couldn't find names of the actual rescuers, which actually I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I feel like that's something that like those people are probably like suffering from that after that event. So but I'm assuming that Jasper was a name given to a fictional version of one of the rescuers who was there on site. And like they used that event to like as the generative like plot for like why Jasper is suffering from such like intense PTSD about caving or cave rescue.
Yeah.
And like it works. It grounds the story, but I still don't feel good about it for some reason.
Yeah.
Like,
especially since you told me that like there's stuff in the article saying that some of the rescuers quit as well. So like that's even more direct connections to it.
Yeah, I'll leave a link in the description of this episode for like the article about this about that so that people can like check out the article and see just how close, like just at least like see what I saw when I like just how close this story is to it and stuff.
Yeah, I basically saw that there was articles, but I didn't want to sit down there and read them. Not because I don't have the time or nothing. It's because like I already felt bad enough that it's based on a real thing. I didn't want extra details. That extra detail of the rescuers quitting didn't exactly help matters. But either way, when I first found out about that, if I wasn't reading this for the show, I probably would have stopped reading. Just like out of respect of what happened, I wouldn't have kept reading.
Yeah.
But I can't just say, I mean, I've done it before where I said, I don't want to continue. I don't want to do this story. I'm out. And I probably should have done that, but there's enough important stuff to read. There's a lot of good here is the thing.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's a problem. It's technically a problem because the story itself is written well is the thing.
Yeah.
And I like, as I said before, I like the concepts of it. Potentially a monster, potentially a spirit, potentially this, potentially that. And none of it is really clarified, but it's not done in a way that annoys me. The thing that annoys me are the names. It's like the simplest things. So
yeah, and you'll notice that like, sorry,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was like, and you'll notice that like I wasn't like in my thoughts on the story, I wasn't entertaining the supernatural element as much as you guys were.
Yeah.
Mostly because I was like, I don't know if I really want to touch on that anymore for this story.
I was trying to use it as a defense mechanism.
Yeah, you were using it as a coping mechanism. I was going more for like the psychological angle as my coping mechanism, like to treat this with this event as with more respect. So it's like, like I said, like I've been saying, it's a very fine line for like when you're going to do that kind of thing with a story where you're going to like take from reality and not like just like draw inspiration, but like almost wholesale take from reality.
Yeah, like the picture and everything.
Yeah,
it's like there's so many caving pictures you can find. Grab one from the actual event, like not to put you on blast, but
yeah, Shadow, like this got great reviews on creepypasta wiki. Like it like in the comments are actually like reviews for the contest entry stuff.
Yeah,
and I don't like and like it is merited. It is a very effective creepypasta. It's just so tied to something actual tragic that like like I think that's what we're both feeling.
Pretty much, yeah. Like early on I said I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
But like I was gonna have caveats to that as well, but like this is such a big caveat. It's like I'm gonna say partial on its on the way it is now, just because of the names and the location. If the names and the location were changed and the picture was changed so that you couldn't like very easily see, like you actually have to hunt to find out the inspiration of this.
Yeah.
If it was like that, then full recommendation for sure, because I love the way that the story went. It was great.
Yeah, I want
to tainted so much for me.
Okay, here's the thing. Here's my like message to Shadow Swimmer, because they may be listening to this, especially since they asked us a while back to like when we were going to get back to some of their stories. This was really well written.
Yes.
And was really cool and creepy.
Yes.
But
yes.
File the names off of if you're going to use a real like event next time.
Mm-hmm.
Like do a little bit more like distancing from the real event that you're inspired by. That's all we're saying. Like it definitely painted our opinions on the story when we found out about the true event that this was inspired by or directly based off of. So
even if just John's name was changed to something else.
Yeah.
But ideally John's name and also the name of the cave.
Yeah, like
and also the picture.
Yeah,
those three things.
Yeah. Honestly, the picture, like, it's a great representation. I wasn't aware that it was actually from Nutty Putty.
I got that because I did a Google image search
of
the picture. That's how I figured that out. So that part you actually do have to hunt for, so that's passable. But
Yeah.
The names, man.
The names, yeah, like the names of John probably should be, and like some of the details maybe like flub, like just like modify them a little bit more, and change the name of the cave so that it's not like searchable or that it's like a fictional cave somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just like, this is so weird because we all recommend this story, but we have caveats on it, and like we also like we like this story immensely, but we also all have a guilty feeling about it too.
We say all. I think Mikey's fine with that.
Well, because Mikey didn't look up any of the details of the story. He read it at face value, like a good creepypasta reader.
Yeah, I should have just put the blinders on. I wish I did, to be honest.
Like, this is definitely, I think this is actually a first for our show, where like we all really liked the story. We're commending the author for the writing. Just the baseline like background material is just like, it's a little too close to home in a way, or like it's a little too close to like a real tragedy event, and it's like you need to like distance that. I think if maybe we're just a bunch of like really overly sensitive like old guys.
Yeah, it might be overly sensitive, but the way I view it is if a family member
read this, oh my god,
read this, would they be okay with it? That's the way I would see it.
Yeah, like yeah.
That's the end of my
okay. I think that's the end of our rant, to be honest.
That too.
It's like, because again, like I love how like the story was like, this is the first for our show, because like we all really liked the story, but we all feel weird about it. like I'm sure like the way like our thoughts and stuff that came out, it was like, it's like we were like picking at it for this very situation, and then it was just like, but at the end of the day, we all still recommend it. Just here's some caveats if you're going to recommend this story.
Yeah, that's why my initial recommendation was just a full recommendation, because how much I liked it. But like through our talk, I'm like, I realized how much it really bothers me, so I can't fully recommend it as it is.
Yeah, and like honestly, like so here's some editor notes. If you ever want to like publish this somewhere or something else, like other than like online, or like if you want to do some like re-edits, here's some editor notes. Just you can have them for free.
Yeah.
But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. So yeah, like we all recommended this story. There's just a couple of caveats about it.
Yeah.
It is really well written. I want that to be like known. Like the writing is top notch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there were moments where I was like actually getting like anxious energy from it, which is good.
Yeah.
It's just that taint.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress.
Yeah.
That is the end of our show. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below wherever this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because his name is too goddamn long.
It is, but I don't have a choice.
No.
Also, is it still Twitter or is it X now?
It's X, formerly known as Twitter.
Uh-huh.
Like I actually get emails from.
Should we be saying that we're on X?
I guess. I mean, I still get emails. It's like where it says like X and then in brackets formerly Twitter in bracket.
God, I hate that shit.
Yeah, fuck you, Elon Musk.
Because like it's still Twitter.com.
Yeah, it's still Twitter in my heart.
God, dating this episode so bad, but it just bothers me.
I know. Yeah, this is not going to age well. Like in a couple of years.
Whatever.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So you can check us out there. I'm at Review Cultist, and who knows, we might have some other like links to other like social media platforms in the next little while. Whenever I get an invite to one of them, like Big Sky or Blue Sky or whatever that is, the other new one that's come out of the X situation.
X gave it to us.
Yeah,
gave it to the entire internet.
Yeah. But anyway, also you can send us emails the good old fashioned way at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTS @gmail.com. where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void down a deep, dark chasm. And without your writing and having the courage to post online and have people look at it and make a very lengthy episode about how they like it, but they're also really like conflicted about the material.
And they just won't let it go, even in
No,
the
it's
outro.
we're all Elsas here.
Yeah. Mainly just you and me.
I get, yeah, really. Man, we're just constantly being Disney princesses, aren't we? Anyway, we do honestly like thank you for like posting these creepypastas online, because if you didn't, we'd have nothing to talk about. I'd have nothing to read and get spooked at and get creeped out at and love and like want to share it and infect my fellow hosts with. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. D stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.